You're listening to The Morning Mix, coming to you live from the Scottish Parliament in Holyrood in Edinburgh, and I am joined now by Dennis Robertson, MSP from SNP, and he joins me now here with Mr. Q, I have to say.
Absolutely.
Mr. Q, the guide wolf, I have to say. Thanks for coming in to join us today. Tell us a little bit about your day-to-day job as an MSP. I mean, what is your... I mean, it's probably quite varied, actually, isn't it? Very
varied. I mean, because it really depends what's happening on any given day, whether or not you've got committees or, you know, people wanting appointments with you at certain times, or if you're in the chamber. But primarily, I mean, when I'm here, and I'm generally down in Parliament from Tuesday to Thursday, so I'm quite often in Parliament from the back of 8 in the morning, and I'm usually here till about 8:30 in the evening.
That's quite a short day, then.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, occasionally it's a wee bit later, but I mean, that's because we're maybe at dinner or something in an event. But most days you're on a 12, possibly 13-hour shift. But it's very varied, which is good, because then you're dealing with all the topics that people are bringing forward. The best thing I like about being here in Parliament, to be honest, is probably the work in the chamber. And the committee work. I mean, that's where the work is done, and certainly in the open debates. And I still get quite excited about them, to be honest.
Yeah, the sort of the adrenaline.
Yeah, especially because I quite often put myself forward to speak in a debate of a topic I know little or nothing about prior to the topic. Which means at the end of the day, you've got to do that wee bit of research, you've got to sort of prime yourself up. But I mean, that's how you learn. And really coming into this job, it was a steep learning curve for me, you know, from my previous background. So, I'm loving it. In fact, my maiden speech was on energy, the sort of oil and gas sector, which is very important for my own constituency in Aberdeenshire West, because West Hill, which is part of my own constituency, is probably now, apart from the Europe hub, for the oil and gas sector, it's probably a world leader in the subsea technology. So it's very exciting for me, so it's a steep learning curve.
Now, you won the by-election. You made history this year by becoming the first blind MSP in the Scottish Parliament. Yeah. You took over from the by-election won over the Liberal Democrats up in Aberdeenshire. Yeah. What kind of change was that then after that? How did things change? If I was living in Aberdeen, what would I notice was different?
I'm a nice person.
No?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the whole North East now basically is SNP. So it's a massive change in terms of the political scene. Within the, as far as MSPs are concerned, I mean, there's still Labour within Aberdeen, within the city, and the MP for the, well, which is still West Aberdeenshire and Kincardine, is Sir Robert Hill-Smith, and he's still the MP and he's a Lib Dem. But in terms of the MSPs, we've got the whole of the North East. So there's been a massive change, and we look at even what we've got ministers within the sort of northeast corner. I mean, from Murray, we've got Richard Lochhead. You know, we've got Stuart Stevenson. We've got the First Minister, obviously. So we do really, really well in terms of the ministerial profile as well. But we're covering the whole of the northeast. So I think it's a big shift, and working with certainly our local authorities and our health boards probably gives us a better steer, and it means we're taking forward a government agenda, which is great. It's fantastic, especially at the meetings. I'm not sure that people knew initially how to take me, but I'm very open in terms of meetings. And I think I take forward a sort of fairly friendly, open agenda, and I'm willing to listen to people, and I think that's where I am coming from. So I'm supporting what the government's initiatives are. So I suppose really the difference would be the people within Aberdeenshire West is when Mike Rumbles was there, he was probably challenging the government on a lot of occasions. And because I'm taking forward a government agenda, I will still ensure that I'm working for the constituents of Aberdeenshire West. And if it means I need to tackle the government on certain issues, I certainly will.
Now, I've mentioned your blindness, and how does that change the dynamic of what you do? Does it change it, in fact? How are you perceived amongst all the other parties? Is there any difference? Does it give you an advantage in the way that you can deal with people, do you think?
Advantage? Perhaps not. I think initially people I think initially people are thinking, it's a blind guy. How do we communicate? I mean, they don't have the eye contact and stuff, but it's something I get over very quickly. And I
Do
have.
they though?
I think they do, because I think in my whole professional career, it's something I've always worked on throughout the sort of 30 odd years I was in the social care sector, and I think people get fairly relaxed very quickly. Blindness doesn't become the issue, and I think quite often in terms of information and information they want to give me, if they come with hard copy information, I just ask for an electronic copy, and they're quite happy, because most hard copy is produced on a computer system anyway, so it's fine. And once you get over that initial stage, it's absolutely perfect. So it really hasn't become an issue. And one thing I must do, I really must congratulate the Parliament in terms of what they did for me coming initially. I mean, they were really up to the mark. After I was elected, they phoned me to say, we're ready for you. So they must have done something about the electorate that I didn't know at the time, in terms of getting voted in. No, I mean, really they were. And the first question they said is, what do you need? What can we do, to make it much easier for you coming in? So they were really open, and they were just open to suggestion, and they were there, and they had the JAWS and everything waiting for me when I came in, and it was fantastic.
Talking software for your computer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They had it organised, and they were looking at all the things, and they knew that I wouldn't be able to use the BlackBerry, for instance, and all parliamentarians walk about with a BlackBerry either attached to their ear or very close to it. And BlackBerry, in terms of the software that's here at the moment, isn't accessible for blind people. Although there is a new ratio program coming out. It's only been licensed in America at the moment for BlackBerries, so I'm looking forward to seeing that hopefully in the near future. So they're very good, I must admit. Yeah.
And the thing is, when you look at the Scottish Government website, one of the first things that hits you on the homepage is a statement about equality.
Yeah.
And it says that the Scottish Government underpin all the policy with equality. So they have to put their money where their mouth is, actually, in government, as before they can actually sort of shape laws on that, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And to be perfectly honest, every committee now is tasked with the an equality agenda as well. So regardless what committee sits, whether it be education, health, sport, a local government, we always ask them to bear in mind the whole equality agenda as well. And the committees I'm on the Equal Ops Committee anyway, and it's something that we're very keen on to lead. And we scrutinise what other committees are doing as well. And if they're not coming up to the mark, we tell them. So far, we haven't had to tell them, which is good, which is great, because it means that they're actually taking notice. So I think it's very, very much on the agenda of every parliamentarian, I think, within the Scottish Government now.
Well, Mr Robertson, we'll leave it there for the minute, and you're listening to the RNIB's Insight Radio. This is The Morning Mix, coming to you live from the Scottish Parliament in Holyrood in Edinburgh, giving you a flavour throughout the day, broadcasting live and speaking to some of the most influential politicians in Scottish politics. And I am sitting here now with Dennis Robertson MSP and member for Aberdeenshire West. Did I get that right?
That's right.
That's right. And his guide dog, Mr Q, lying very quietly there. I want to take you back to the beginning of the year, Mr Robertson, and you were campaigning.
I was indeed.
And you also suffered a great loss in the loss of your daughter.
I did.
How do you carry on with your job when that's going on in the background?
That was very difficult, I must admit. Caroline was a very sick girl. And it was very difficult. I even do my day job at that time as well, because I was actually in social work. And it was quite difficult. Caroline has always supported me in my political ambition, and she quite often was very critical of some of the material I was sometimes putting together, and she had a great eye for some of the artwork we were using for our leaflets, and she was always correcting some of the material we would use and stuff like that. So she was very much involved, and when Caroline became very ill and was in the hospital, she made me promise at the time to continue the campaign. And not to basically sort of walk away from it. That would have been the easiest thing to do for me in some respects, just to walk away. But because she made me, well, basically she said, you must promise me you will. So I did, So when I was elected in May, it was really Caroline's dream. And when I spoke after being elected, I really did. I was very emotional at the time, but it was for Caroline, and obviously I was very proud. And I think, and I'm sure she is. I'm sure she's extremely proud of me. And every day, Caroline's with me, so it's I'm doing what, and sometimes she's telling me, you need to do better. She was a lovely, lovely girl, and it was very hard, not just for me, but for my wife and Caroline's twin. Caroline was a twin, and Fiona is obviously still struggling with that to some extent. So it was a difficult time, but it was a very mixed time for us. Obviously, the elation of being elected and fulfilling my dream, Caroline's dream, was fantastic, but the loss of a daughter is something that you can't put into words. And I'm not sure that and you wouldn't want other people to experience it. Yeah. But I think unless you've experienced the loss of a child, it's something that people probably can't understand.
Do you feel that there's more pressure on you as a blind MSP to deal with issues to do with disability and even sight loss?
There's more pressure on me
Yeah.
As a person because I want to ensure that I certainly take that agenda forward. So I put pressure on myself. I'm not sure that the organisations and agencies are putting pressure on me to take their agenda forward, because I'm happy to do that. So I do put pressure on myself. The one thing I'm trying to do is to try and ensure that I'm seen as Dennis Robertson MSP, who happens to be blind, as opposed to blind Dennis Robertson MSP. So there is a subtle difference, and really, I hope that I'm doing what people expected of me. And as I say, if people think I need to do more in terms of taking the agenda forward, I'm obviously happy to hear from them and to do that. And certainly on the welfare reforms that's going through at the moment in Westminster, I'm certainly leading the charge here as well, because it's an abhorrent, it's immoral as far as I'm concerned, the changes that they're imposing. And we'll do everything here, certainly within the Scottish Government and certainly the Parliament, because I think we're quite unanimous, apart from our Tory Lib Dem people, about obviously trying to change what is being proposed within the welfare reforms.
I mean, chanting this morning that there seems to be a willingness to listen to people and what's being said, but I still think that people, the voters, often feel that, especially in the minorities, that they're going unheard.
I think that goes with everything. It's not just Parliament. It's local government, it's health, it's everything. And I think we've all got a job to do to try and ensure that we're engaging more with people. It is an open and transparent Parliament. I mean, everything that goes on in this Parliament is open and transparent. People have access to. But let's face it, unless you're really into the sort of political scene, the political agenda, unless it's something that's going to impact on you on a daily basis, you're probably not going to engage through the Parliament website or the government website. You're going to read your newspapers, you're going to hear what's going on the radio, and it's up to the media to some extent, and Insight Radio, as well, to take that agenda forward and say, there's this issue, there's a consultation on, involve yourselves. We can only do so much. But I hope that even through our surgeries, I mean, I'm very open to seeing people, and I sincerely hope that all my staff are very open as well. So if I'm not available, people can actually, have appointments with my staff and all the rest of it. And I do encourage it.
And I'm just going to leave you finally on technology. How are you with technology? I'm a bit of a technophobe, I have to say.
Technology, yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it's moved. I wouldn't be able to do my job unless I had embraced the technology. So it is moving, and it has moved at a pace, but it does limit you. You can't do the things that a person with sight can do in terms of, picking up a document, scanning a document. I mean, you tend to have to go through it, not really word by word, because you can accelerate the speed at which you're reading sometimes, but you're at a slight disadvantage. But I mean, what's out there is far beyond what I was using 30, 20 and 10 years ago, and it keeps moving. And already this morning, I've heard about, the iPhone S, and how wonderful it is. Something I need to investigate, because it might just open another door for me in terms of the technology and accessibility. Because we need to be accessible, and we need to have that ability to access information on a regular basis. I mean, all the other parliamentarians are walking about their BlackBerries, probably on silent mode, but they know if they get an email or a text in and we need to be somewhere rather quick. I'm relying on staff to tell me that, rather than technology, because the system I have at the moment isn't really up to the mark.
All right, and immediate challenges, would you say, for the SNP?
Immediate challenge for the SNP, and hopefully ensuring that we get through this winter in a much better way that we did last winter. I think we're really up for it. I mean, Keith Brown has put out basically the challenge to Transport Scotland and everyone else. So we are working together. So we need to get through this winter much better than we did last year, and we're ready for that. We've got bills coming up, and I think we need to try and ensure that we take Scotland with us with what we're proposing with the agenda. But I really think the thing that, and it's something that we don't have much control over, and that is the impact of the Welfare Reform Bill. And we need to step up to the mark to let people in Scotland know that we are really working as hard as we can to lessen the impact on, and I think everyone, in terms of the Welfare Reform Bill, and we'll do everything we can here within this Parliament to ensure that it doesn't impact on people. And it is going to be the most vulnerable. It is going to be the poorest in our society. It is going to be the people with disabilities that are going to be disadvantaged. And we have to try and ensure that it doesn't impact on their lives.
Lots of work to do.
Absolutely. But, it's work that you look forward to and work that you can enjoy. And, and it's a privilege to be here. And people have, put their trust in you. And, and every MSP should feel privileged to be here. And I certainly do.
Dennis Robertson, MSP, and Mr. Q, Guide Dog, thank you very much for joining us here on Insight Radio.
You're welcome.